My name is Ryan. I'm 30 years old, and I live in a quiet little town about 40 minutes outside Seattle. Most mornings, I wake up around 6:45 a.m., make a single cup of coffee, and watch the weather report before I drive less than 10 minutes to the office. It's a modest building, a space we renovated from an old warehouse, but it houses something I helped build from the ground up. I co-founded a small technology company a few years ago, focused on sustainable energy solutions. Most people in my neighborhood don't understand what that means, and frankly, most of my family doesn't either. They still think I spend my days tightening screws and fixing wires, and I've never really cared enough to correct them. I've never needed the credit. I never asked for recognition. Whenever someone at work or in the neighborhood asks about my family, my parents or my sister Jessica, I usually just smile politely and say something vague. It's been a while since we talked, I'll say, and then let the silence speak for itself. It's not that I'm ashamed or hiding anything. It's just that I no longer see the value in trying to explain something so broken to people who wouldn't understand. There's been no contact between us for more than 2 years now. No calls, no texts, no birthdays, no holidays. Just a long, undisturbed silence, as if the connection we once had was not cut, but carefully untied and left to drift apart. That silence began 2 years ago, 3 weeks before my mother's birthday. At the time, I had just booked time off from work. It was a tradition for me to help with her birthday every year. I'd usually arrive early, help prep the food, pick up the cake, and even handle any tech trouble they had around the house. That year was no different, or so I thought. It was going to be a short trip. I planned to stay for just a few days. Nothing complicated. Just family. I remember calling home that morning. My mother didn't pick up, but my father did. The conversation started out casual, the way it always did. I told him I'd be home early that year, and if they needed anything, I was happy to help. But then there was a pause. A strange silence on the other end of the line. It stretched longer than it should have, and when he finally spoke, his voice had shifted, colder, almost hesitant, like he was forcing himself to say something he'd been rehearsing. "Ryan," he said, "if possible, maybe don't come home this year." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "It's no big deal," I said. "I've already made plans. Everything's taken care of." There was another pause, this one heavier than the last. "Jessica's bringing her boyfriend this year," he said finally. "He's a manager, somebody important, talks well, carries himself nicely. And your job? Well, it's not something we feel comfortable discussing around him. It might just be better if you sit this one out." At first, I didn't even know how to respond. I felt something hot creep up the back of my neck. My fingers curled tighter around my coffee mug. "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, trying to stay calm. "Are you actually saying I can't come home because I'm an embarrassment?" He didn't argue, didn't soften the blow. He just said it. "You coming home would embarrass the whole family. If you insist on coming, don't call me your father." Then he hung up. I stared at the phone in disbelief. My hands were trembling slightly. I didn't even hear the TV in the background anymore. All I could hear was the echo of his voice, clear as a bell, repeating over and over again. "You coming home would embarrass the whole family. Don't call me your father." At first, I wondered if I had imagined it. Maybe I'd misheard, but I hadn't. It was all too deliberate, too precise, too cruel. And in that silence, something old inside me broke apart. Not violently, but quietly, like an old piece of string snapping after being pulled too tightly for too long. And then, something happened. I stopped feeling anything. No grief, no anger, just emptiness. I opened my banking app, still holding my phone with a shaking hand. I scrolled through my transaction history and stopped at the list of payments I'd been making for the past 2 years. Utilities, electricity, water, internet, all on autopay. Quiet, unseen, taken for granted. Nearly $400 a month. I did the math. $9,842.17. That's how much I'd paid for them. No thanks. No recognition. Just silence. And now they were calling me the family's shame. I canceled the payments that same morning. Every last one. Not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. The only thing they hadn't already stripped from me. 1 week later, I received a message from my mother. Her tone was soft, like always. There was no mention of what had happened. No apology. Just a gentle nudge. Internet bill is due. Can you take care of it? I didn't reply. A few days after that, a voicemail from my father. The power bill isn't paid. What's going on? Again, no mention of what he said. No remorse. Just entitlement. I stayed silent. And 3 weeks later, on the very day of my mother's birthday, the messages started flooding in. One after another. First my mom. Ryan, the power's out. The whole house is dark. Please fix this. Then my dad. No water. We can't cook. Take care of this now. And Jessica. Internet's down. Guests are arriving. This is urgent. Please help. I looked at the time. 5:12 p.m. Exactly 3 weeks since the day they told me not to come home. And right there, as they gathered for a birthday I was uninvited from, the house began to shut down. Power, water, internet, all gone. And I didn't respond. I just sat in my apartment with a cold cup of coffee, staring out the window, watching the sky shift into the slow gray hush of an approaching evening. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because there was no one left to carry the weight. But the most unexpected part came next. A video call from Aunt Lauren, the only one in the family who had ever truly seen me. She answered from the kitchen, her face lit by the soft yellow lights I remembered from my childhood. The room was full of nervous chatter and the clinking of silverware. She looked at me and asked gently, "You're not going to pay for it, are you?" I shook my head. Then something happened I'll never forget. A young man stepped into the frame, dressed in a clean black suit, well-groomed, polite, confused. He looked at me and said, "Hey, boss." There was a moment of stillness in the room, like a glass had been dropped but not yet shattered. That's when it all came together. Jessica's boyfriend. The one I wasn't good enough to stand beside. He worked for me, and the silence in the kitchen was deafening. He straightened, cleared his throat, and said clearly, "I work at Pacific Terry Tech. Mr. Ryan is one of the company's co-founders." And just like that, the silence collapsed into whispers, then noise. I nodded once and said calmly, "Hope your big introduction goes well." Then I ended the call. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. The next day, an email arrived. From Hudson Kane, Jessica's now ex-boyfriend. He apologized. He said he didn't know I was Jessica's brother. That he was ending the relationship. That he respected me as a leader and wanted to be honest. I replied simply, "Hudson, that's your decision. I don't bring family into the workplace. Do what's right, not what's easy." Later that morning, Jessica called. I declined the call. She texted, "He broke up with me. Please talk to him. Ask him to come back." I responded, "He left because of how you live, how you treat people." I didn't say anything. He just saw you clearly. A week later, I opened my front door, and there they were, my parents, suitcases in hand, not there to apologize, not truly, but to ask for $2,000 a month. Because, according to them, I owed it to them. Because they were my parents. Because they had raised me. I didn't argue. I just asked one question. What about Jessica? How much will she be contributing? They had no answer. So I made an offer. If she agrees to give $2,000 per month, I'll do the same. Or give me the house in writing after you pass. Then I'll pay the full amount. My father exploded, slammed the table, called me heartless. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "I think you both should leave my house." And they did. It's been 2 years. I never blocked them, but I never called again either. And they haven't reached out. Because when you stop being useful to people who only see your worth in what you can offer, they vanish. I've learned that real family doesn't keep a ledger. And if you've read this far, let me leave you with this. Was I wrong for finally saying no? Maybe, maybe not. But I know one thing. I finally learned how to stop apologizing for taking up space in my own life.